if we muster the political will, we Europeans, to really arm Ukraine to its teeth, to really give Ukraine whatever it needs, to really allow Ukraine to push back Russia to the extent possible, and to ultimately bring the kleptocratic and, war criminal regime in Moscow to justice. If we'd had the political will, of course, we would be able to do it.
The US president has given President Volodymyr Zelensky a deadline. Thursday is the deadline. It's for him to accept this 28-point peace plan or reportedly face an end to supply of weapons and intelligence sharing. Now, under the 28-point peace plan, Ukraine would have to shrink its armed forces to 600,000 troops. They're currently estimated to be anywhere between 800,000 and 1 million. They would also have to cede eastern areas it controls to Russia and commit itself to never joining NATO. Now, what if the proposals, though, don't please President Zelensky? Well, here's what Donald Trump had to say to that in the Oval Office.
He'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, they should just keep fighting, I guess,
The suggestion that he made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. would pull back its support for Ukraine.
Well, at some point, he's going to have to accept something. He hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards. Don't forget, I inherited this war. This war never would have happened. I inherited this war. And I thought he should have made a deal a year ago, 2 years ago. The ultimate deal would have been if it never started. That would have been the good deal. That could have been done, too, if you had the right president, but you didn't have the right president.
Well, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has said that Ukraine's allies will come together at the upcoming G20 summit in South Africa and strengthen the Trump administration's plan to end the war with Russia. Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin has backed the deal, saying it can be used as the basis for a final peaceful settlement. Well, let's welcome back to the show Stefanie Babst, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary General of NATO. Stefanie, welcome back. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hello, Alexis, and thanks for having me again. Good afternoon.
I was looking at that piece that was written up in the Times after we spoke back in February of this year. Well, you essentially were the first to say that Donald Trump has actually switched sides and he's bringing the US closer to Russia. There's been a lot of criticism of this 28-point peace plan, that it's essentially a wish list for Vladimir Putin. Having looked at the plan closely, have you changed your mind?
No, I haven't. And in fact, I would suggest, that we stop calling it a peace plan, because it is not a peace plan. It is not aimed at creating peace in any form. If at best, it's probably a description of potential deal-making points between Washington and Moscow. And I think it pursues three different objectives. The first one is really to put maximum pressure on President Zelensky, weaken him politically again, and put him really one more time into a straitjacket. Second, to allow Russia to basically say, hello, we have achieved our imperial war aims, and we get away with that without any type of punishment. And the third is to allow both the United States and Russia to advance its business interests. And this is what I've already said back in February this year. I think a reset of US-Russian relation is very much on top of President Trump's and both President Putin's agenda.
There is also, you mentioned that the pressure on President Zelensky, there is also part of that deal. Elections have to take place after the peace deal has been signed within 100 days. Do you think that part of the peace deal is also the removal of President Zelensky?
Oh, yes. This has been an objective of President Putin for an endless number of years. He can't stand President Zelensky. He hates him. He wants to see him being drowned. If even he tried to kill him, to eliminate him. And President Putin, despite of what he kept saying here and there, I think he has absolutely no sympathies for the Ukrainian president, let alone for the Ukrainian people. So no, President Zelensky stands in their way, and so that's obviously an attempt to weaken him, put pressure on him, and ultimately to get rid of him.
What do you think President Zelensky should say? How do you think he should respond? He's got until Thursday to do so. What do you think he should be doing between then and now? And how do you think he should respond?
Well, in a way, he has already responded by addressing his own people and saying we really face a very, very difficult choice now between our dignity, our liberty, our freedom on the one hand side, and eventually losing a very essential partner, which is the United States. And he's right. But I think from a, let's say, tactical point of view, the best he can do now is to buy time to give Europeans an opportunity to do what I think they should have long done already, namely to present their own, quote unquote, plan ahead and send a letter to President Putin with their proposals and their conditions and their demands. Hopefully, this is what the Europeans will come up with once they meet somewhere on the margins at the G20 summit in Johannesburg. But taking the plan or taking this pamphlet, if I call it like that, that Trump has now put on the table together with Putin as a starting point, hoping to advance some of the points, to improve some of the points being mentioned there, I would suggest this is a complete non-starter. So, buying time and then hopefully, get the Europeans really behind.
But when you say buying time, does that mean that President Zelensky has got to turn down the deal by Thursday and say, look, I can't accept this deal. Here's an alternative?
Yeah, that would be something I would be doing, apart from the fact that I think it's very important, not just for President Zelensky, but also for us Europeans, to not allow President Trump and not allow President Putin to put pressure on us and to put us in a straitjacket and say, here, either you eat it or you die. This is completely unacceptable. And that would need to be a very clear message communicated to Washington. We are not back in the 19th or 20th century, where two countries divide the fate, or countries rather, in our neighborhood. It is our continent. It is our European continent. So we must have a say in that. And we should really say to President Trump that it was a nice effort, but we would ignore it.
But Stefanie, the point that has been made over and over by this Trump administration is that it seems that our continent, our Europe, as you put it, is incapable of defending itself and its interests without US support. So could Ukraine afford to turn down this deal if that might mean the withdrawal of all American help?
I maintain the view, which I have always maintained, that if we muster the political will, we Europeans, to really arm Ukraine to its teeth, to really give Ukraine whatever it needs, to really allow Ukraine to push back Russia to the extent possible, and to ultimately bring the kleptocratic and, war criminal regime in Moscow to justice. If we'd had the political will, of course, we would be able to do it. We are not militarily teethless. We are dependent on a number of critical capability issues, but it's not that Europeans and their economies behind, our financial and economic means behind, are powerless. We are not. So I really, really hope that this is the time for Europe to finally wake up. But I must admit, I've said so already a few times in the past, and Europe didn't wake up.
Stefanie, thank you for your time. Really good to speak, as always. Stefanie Babst, their former Deputy Assistant Secretary General of NATO.